Hi guys, Mother Nature here. Today I am going to talk about genetically modified organisms. They're most commonly known as GMOs, and they have been in the food supply for around 25 years, and many people are unaware that they have been consuming GMOs for so many years. Now, a GMO is when you insert a DNA from a plant or organism and you insert it into another plant or organism. Now, this can never happen in nature. This happens only in laboratory. This is how they're able to create GMOs. So, for example, there was an experiment where they inserted an eel DNA into a tomato DNA, and this was done in order to preserve the shelf life of a tomato. Now, fortunately, this never came to market because it tasted awful. And this is just an example of how GMOs are created. Now, when you go to the supermarket, there are ways that you can tell if a product is GMO or not. And this is because there's a PLU label, PLU label, and it usually has a 5-digit code. So if it begins with an 8, that means it's GMO. If it begins with a 9, it's organic. And if it begins with a 3 or 4, then it's conventional. And conventional means they're probably using pesticides and herbicides. So those are the things that you want to look for when you are in the grocery shops and if you want to know if this product contains GMO or not. Now, most processed foods contain GMO ingredients. So the most common crops are corn, canola, soy, alfalfa, and there's the squash, and there's also Arctic apple, which just came on the market recently, and papaya. And the Arctic apple is really, it's really crazy because this is why I'm sure a lot of people are giving to their kids, because it comes pre-sliced package and it doesn't brown, and this is how it's GMO. And many people may not like the color of apples. After a few minutes it starts to brown. So this is the selling point for this particular GMO product. And for many mothers, they may be giving their kids this Arctic apple because it's easy. Kids love apples. They can just take it with them. So this is the fruit, the apple that is on the market at the moment. But regular apples, if it comes whole, is not GMO. Now, we want to avoid consuming processed food because that's where we get a lot of the GMOs in our diet. So every time you look at maybe packaged crackers or bread, it has at least soy, lecithin, it may have corn or modified corn, canola oil. These are all GMOs, and these are always in so many products. Over 85% of our processed food has at least one GMO ingredients. So, for example, I have here corn flakes. I picked this up for the video, and if I look at the front of the label, it says no high fructose corn syrup, no artificial flavors, no artificial colors. Now you look at that and you're going to think, okay, that's good. This is healthy. But then when you turn the box around and you look at the ingredients, it has milled corn, sugar, salt, malted barley syrup. Now, corn, more than 85% of the corn grown in the U.S. is GMO. This corn here is, I am sure, at least 98% that it is a GMO corn. It doesn't have any kind of label indicating that it's not GMO corn. So it's GMO corn. Plus, it says sugar. Now, there is a sugar on the market that is GMO, and that's because they're made from the sugar beets, and these beets are genetically modified. So if you see a package that it says sugar, it's most likely a GMO sugar, because when it's not, it usually says cane sugar. Otherwise, if it doesn't say cane sugar and is not labeled organic, it would most likely be sugar coming from the sugar beets. Now, we all love our snacks, and we want to minimize having snacks, having processed foods, but there are healthier versions that you can look for on the market. Now, I love my chocolate. I'm a chocolate lover, and I want to show you two different types of candy, and this is a good comparison to show that you have better options. You just have to be aware of it, and you just have to look for them. Now, I have this brand Theo, and you see here it says USDA organic, and it says non-GMO. Now, many products are being labeled non-GMO because they know more and more consumers are aware of GMO, and consumers who are aware of it are going to look for these kind of labels. Now, non-GMO means that it is not organic, but it doesn't have GMO ingredients. In this case, it's USDA, but they also put the label non-GMO. When I look on the back, the ingredients are cocoa beans, cane sugar, cocoa butter, freeze-dried berries, and that's it. Only 4 ingredients. And this is one way also to minimize having processed food and having GMO in your diet, because the fewer ingredients, the better, and the less chance that you will have GMO ingredients. Now, I have here O. Henry. Now, this has been around on the market for a long time. When I was a kid, I used to love O. Henry. But years ago, O. Henry was an uncomplicated product. It was just regular cane sugar, chocolate. But now this has about 10 ingredients, and it has corn syrup made from corn, so that's GMO. It has soy lecithin, that is GMO. It has non-fat milk, some fat, you have to be careful. Some milk products are made from ingredients that are not very healthy. I will do a future video on that, but that's also something that you want to watch out for. Then it has here sugar. It doesn't say cane sugar, it just says sugar. So most likely that is the sugar beets. And then it has mono and diglyceride. That's the type of fat. It has citric acid. Citric acid most likely is mostly made from corn. And in its natural form, citric acid comes from citric fruits. And when you see citric acid on the package, you are going to be deceived and think that, oh, it's simple, it's uncomplicated, it's not a toxic product, but most likely it's being made from GMO. And then it has also TPHQ. That's the type of preservative. It's also very unhealthy for you. So this O. Henry, that was a very simple, uncomplicated product 25 years ago, now has all these ingredients that is not healthy for you. So those are the things that you want to look for. Try to minimize having a product that has a long list of ingredients. Now, the dangers of GMO. There have been studies that show that GMO can be very unhealthy for us. The most famous study is the Seralini study that was conducted a few years ago. And they used rats, and it was a 2-year study. It was one of the longest studies that have been done, because most of the studies on the market have been a very short study. For example, Monsanto, who's the leader of GMO, they have done only 90 days for their experiment, and they determined that from this 90-day experiment that GMO is safe, and the FDA approved it. The FDA stated that GMO is equivalent to conventional farm products, so there's no need for labeling. So what they discovered in the Seralini study is that the rats develop lots of tumors, they develop liver damage, all types of organ damage. The offsprings were underweight when they were born, and then there were also fertility issues. And that's a common problem that have been coming out in some studies, that it can affect fertility. Another problem is that it has an impact on how your body metabolizes glucose. And also there have been studies linking GMO to infertility. And there have been studies linking GMO to diabetes. So that's another issue that we have to be concerned about. And also, GMOs have an impact on your healthy bacteria. Our bacteria in our stomach is known as the second gut, as the second brain, because it's so important for the health of our body. When our bacteria is no longer functioning healthy, we can create a lot of imbalance in our bodies. And many people who have health issues, they have been able to resolve them just by removing GMOs from their diets. So with this study, the Seralini study, it was actually retracted because Monsanto's and other companies were saying that the study was not valid. And one of the reasons why they said the Seralini study was not valid was because the type of the rats that they used in the experiment. But the thing is, Monsanto used the exact same rat in their study. So if it's invalid for the Seralini study, then it should be invalid for the Monsanto study as well. Well, to make a long story short on this experiment, a year later, the study was republished in another medical journal because it was a very accurate study. It was valid. And over 1,200 doctors and scientists got together, and they were able to show that the study was valid. And they saw that because of Monsanto's influence on so many companies, that there were the reason why this study was retracted. And they realized that a legitimate scientific study cannot be taken off the market, cannot be removed and say that it's invalid just because Monsanto has so much power. So it was republished again, and it was shown that it was a very valid study, and there was no reason for it to be retracted. And it also came out that the reason why Monsanto's study was also the reason why Monsanto was able to get the original study retracted was because Monsanto had conflict of interest with the publishing company that published the first study. There was a connection between the publishing people at the publishing company and Monsanto. And it was determined that this was one of the reasons why they were able to get this study retracted in the first place. So it was not because the study was invalid. So luckily, the study by Seralini was republished, and it was shown that it was conducted in a very scientific way. I will be posting many links regarding GMO because I can't explain everything in this video, and there's so many important things about GMOs, how it came to market, how the GMO companies have a lot of connections with our with our politicians, our food corporations, and this is why GMO is on the market and is no labeling. Now, one of the biggest conflict of interest is that a lot of our agencies, for example, the FDA, the USDA, the EPA, and pharmaceutical companies, they all have this incestuous relationship. So, for example, there are people who work for the FDA, and then a few years later, they go and work for the pharmaceutical companies and vice versa. And then we have people who are working for the pharmaceutical companies who at some point in their careers go and work for the USDA or for the FDA. Now, for example, with the USDA, there's a guy named Tom Vilsack, and you may have heard his name in the past few weeks because Joe Biden has been considering him to be on his team for the next 4 years. Now, Tom Vilsack worked as the top guy for the USDA some years ago, and he also worked for Monsanto as a lobbyist. So he worked for Monsanto. He was the head of the USDA, and still, this is where the conflict of interest lies, because the USDA also has a part in approving the safety of GMO products. So there's a major conflict of interest with these agencies, and they are responsible for determining the safety of our food supply. And a lot of it has major problems, a lot of conflicts. So we cannot really trust these agencies because they don't always follow the rules that they're supposed to. So, for example, the FDA is a government agency. As a government agency, they should be getting their budget from the government. But in reality, 75% of the budget for the FDA comes from the pharmaceutical company in the form of user fees. The FDA is responsible for approving drugs. So whenever they approve a drug for it to come to market, they get paid for the USDA. And over the years, you've noticed that some drugs come on the market, and within a few years, they're taken off the market. Vioxx was one of the most famous cases of drugs killing thousands of people because there were major problems with it, and it was known by the pharmaceutical company. So because of this conflict of interest, sometimes drugs come to market too soon. They are not reviewed as long as they should be. The whole process of approving these drugs sometimes can be not done in the correct way. And this is often the case between there's a major conflict between the USDA and pharmaceutical company. They give money to USDA to approve their drugs. So this is really the fox garden and the hen house, not a very good situation. And this is why we as consumers really have to depend on ourselves and do our own investigation and research everything that we are told. We are told that GMOs are safe, but they're not safe. And in the US, in America, there have never been any long-term studies. The longest study is 90 days. And that cannot be really done that's not long enough to determine that GMO is safe. And it came to light that one of the reasons why they're cut off at 90 days is because after 90 days, the rats started developing health issues. So when they're cut at 90 days, they say that nothing occurred in 90 days is a very valid study. And this is why they said it's safe. So the criteria can be manipulated. And this happens a lot in so many studies that it's manipulated in a way to determine how the outcome is going to be. So we must be aware of things like that. So now, one of the reasons why Monsanto have been able to get away with having so much clout on the GMOs in the market, and it coming to the market without labeling, is because they have so much connections with our politicians. I'm going to post a link called Seeds of Destruction and Seeds of Deception, and it shows the relationship between the politicians and our agencies who are responsible for all of these things, all of these approval of our products on the foods in the market. So you really should take a look at them, and you will see how everything is not done in the most honest way. Now, Monsanto is actually been called the most hated corporation in the world, and partly it's because of the influence they have on, as I said before, our politicians. And now they're no longer called Monsanto, and this is because they were bought by the German pharmaceutical company called Bayer. Now they're under the umbrella of Bayer, but they're still around. They're still putting their products on the market. Now, a few years ago, a custodian won $289 million in court because he developed blood cancer, and many farmers have also been developing blood cancer. And in the case of this custodian, he was using Roundup a lot on the facilities of the school. And this is how he developed this cancer. And it was proven. This is why he was rewarded $289 million. But after he was awarded this amount, sometime later, the judge came back and decreased the award from $289 to $78 million. And people were like, how is this possible? This is unusual for a judge to come back and decrease the award so much. So no one knows why this was done. But even though Monsanto only had to pay $78 million, they were not happy with this, and they decided to take the case to court again. And they knew that this man was only given 2 years by his doctors to live, and they know how cases can be dragged out in court. So they refused to pay the $78 million. Now, other farmers have been suing Monsanto's as well, and they are in court, and some farmers have won cases. But Monsanto they have no interest in really being giving out healthy, and they have no intention of putting a healthy product on the market, and they don't care if people die in the process. And this is why so many cases have been going to court recently. Now, a brief background of Monsanto's history is that they're really a chemical company. They are famous for putting out the product Agent Orange in the 1960s during the time of Vietnam. Agent Orange was sprayed all over a lot of land in Vietnam, and as a result, years later, people had cancer, babies were born with deformities, and this is a product that Monsanto put out, and they're really a chemical company, and now they are in the food industry, and we are consuming foods that they put on the market. So we really have to investigate everything on our own. Now, many states try to put labeling for the consumer to be aware of it, and this never happened because of Monsanto have been able to prevent this. But there is one state, Vermont, who created a law that says any product that has GMO ingredients in in Vermont has to be labeled. And this was supposed to go into effect in 2016. But again, Monsanto was able to prevent this from happening. And our government decided to have a compromise through something called the Dark Act, which actually became a law. And it said that if you want to know a product contains GMO ingredients, what you have to do is use your smartphone, look at the QR code on the package, and you can go to the website when you scan it, and you can see if that product contains GMO ingredients. Now, how many people are going to do that when they're shopping? Not many people are going to do that. That's just very cumbersome. So this is really one way of really having the consumer being aware of what they're eating. And if this law had gone into effect with GMO labeling in Vermont, it would have really have put a real damage on GMO and of GMO products, and consumers would have really been more aware, because it would have been very difficult for the food industry to label products GMO just for Vermont and not for the other states. So in essence, they would have just put labeling on all their products, and it would have gone to all the other states, even if it didn't require GMO labeling, because they're not going to have two types of labeling. This is why Monsanto made sure that this did not become a reality. So in any case, finally, we do have GMO labeling, and it started this year. What we have is something, there's a code. It's actually, I will show it to you what it looks like. I have it here on my computer. And this is what you will see now in the market. It's a label. It's green. It has a little plant. In the background, it has the sun. And it's called bioengineer. Now, when you look at it, that looks innocent. You see green, you see nature. If you look at it, you're going to think, oh, that looks safe. It looks like it's a good thing. But in reality, it's genetically modified ingredients, and it's not safe. And consumers who are not up to date on the name GMO, or now they actually call it bioengineer, because there are more people who have heard the term GMO and they may know that is negative. But bioengineer, this is new for most consumers. So if they see that bioengineer and they see that label, they will think that that is a good thing. So this is how they're very deceptive again. So this is better than nothing, but it's still deceiving the public. People are going to see that label and they're not going to think of genetic modified unless they go and do research. So this is why, as consumers, we have to do our own research. So that is basically it. And actually, one thing about Roundup. Now, Roundup was the chemical that was used for those farmers and for that custodian. And it was determined that it did cause cancers in these farmers and in this custodian. But the crazy thing is that Roundup is still on the market. So how can it be that the court awarded this custodian $78 million because it was determined that he got cancer from Roundup, but yet it's on the market still? The FDA should have taken it off, but it's not. So this again shows how our agencies that are supposed to be protecting us are not protecting us, because I saw it in the market this summer at the garden supply shop. People are using it on their farm. on the farms, that people are using it in their gardens. They have children playing on the lawn that is sprayed with Roundup. So this is just disgusting that our agencies that are supposed to protect us are not protecting us. So this is a little bit on GMOs. In the future, I will be doing, probably my next video will be on how we can try to detox our bodies of GMO that we have consumed in the past. So that will be my next video. So please look out for that. And this is, I hope I was able to provide some information that you find useful in this video. So please leave a comment, give a like to the video, and don't forget to hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video. And you guys take care, and bye-bye.